Hello. Is it too bright? Good Lord.
It feels bright.
It feels real bright all of a sudden.
Feels like the literal sun is in my face.
Huh.
Better?
That's good.
Okay.
With this warm yellow glow behind us.
Hello.
I can't talk today. What is wrong with me?
I like how you, like, we can never talk. That's part of our charm.
It really is.
Hello.
Hello.
10 seconds of silence. Every time we do it, me and you both act so weird. We both get like
As I was trying to be silent, I noticed my calendar. There's November 2021. It's almost February 2022.
Yep, that tracks.
Yeah.
I'm doing great.
That's cap, Megan. As Sophie would say, it's cap. I don't know what that means.
What does that mean?
No.
You know, in Tombstone, he says, "I'm feeling just capital."
I love that. I'm gonna start
Curly
saying
Bill.
that.
He's terrible. He's terrible. He's
Terrible.
One of the most evil bad guys ever.
I'm a bad guy. Duh.
Just as a reminder, if you've never seen Tombstone,
Go watch it now.
it's the best movie ever made. Okay. Hello.
I'll be your Huckleberry.
Yeah, you will. The Witch's Magic Murder Mystery Podcast.
I'm Tara.
And I'm Megan.
Hello.
And this is
A Sonic beverage day. It's much needed. We're not sponsored by Sonic, but we would love to be.
If you want to, Sonic. I mean, Kara knows when I need a cherry vanilla Coke.
I do. And
From
I get a
Sonic
cherry
with all
vanilla.
the ice, the perfect ice.
Oh, it just is the perfect amount. I get a cherry vanilla Dr. Pepper. She gets a cherry vanilla Coke, and I usually get us pastries that day or a sandwich of some sort, and we're golden.
Perfect. Okay.
Megan, are you going to give me your full story today? Is this what this is?
This
what we're doing?
is the full story.
Mm-hmm.
However, I wanted to mention, did you see that they've officially closed the Gabby Petito case?
Oh my gosh, yes.
And I couldn't believe it. That, for one, I couldn't believe how quickly we all stopped talking about it.
Yeah.
Which I guess
Once
is what
there
always
was
happens.
a resolution, everybody just...
Well, we were all outraged.
Yeah.
And there was all the conspiracy about, like, oh, he wasn't really there.
He's hiding under
or his parents,
house.
or, you know. And then all of a sudden,
He's dead too, and...
Because the media tells us what to care about. So all of a sudden, she's not in the news, but somebody new is. And it's just like, oh, Gabby Petito. But in case you haven't heard, which by the time this episode comes out, probably everybody's heard, but they found, when they found his notebook, Brian Laundrie's notebook, with his body, and in the notebook, he had written his confession that he had strangled her, and then he died. They released his cause of death as a single gunshot wound to the head. It's just so unsatisfying.
Yeah.
You know, that's
what her parents have to deal with. I mean, his parents too.
Yeah, both their parents. Although I don't want to be insensitive.
His parents' ethics are questionable.
I just think, on the other hand, everything I know about his parents, I learned from the media. So
it's so true. Yeah, they tell us what to believe.
Yeah, and the media, let's not forget, is a business. They want to sell.
Yep.
They want to get clicks.
Yep.
So somebody has to be the supervillain. But still, I'm just so sad that that's how it ended, and that you know, he escaped having to pay for her crime or pay for her death.
Yeah.
Although I guess he did give his life.
But that's still not enough.
It's just, it's all awful. And every time I see a picture of the two of them together, I think, they're so young.
Yeah.
And so stupid.
She had so many goals, but she was stuck in that domestic violence victim.
Mm-hmm. She was just a girl.
Whirlwind.
Doing whatever she thought she had to do to be loved. And it's like,
yep.
Okay, so there's that.
There's that, guys.
And then there was also an update in the Alex Murdaugh case, where they charged him with like 23 new crimes. I think a whole lot of things related to money and all the stuff that he...
Yeah.
What's the word when you steal money from your job?
Money laundering? No.
You know, embezzlement.
I was like, money laundering, that's not it.
No.
Yep, embezzlement.
Yeah. I mean, there probably was money laundering as well, but I didn't read the full list.
And his family like completely cut him off financially and stuff.
as another really sad case. It's like, how did this guy get here? He's from this really powerful, like, dynasty of family. God, yeah. And good Lord, his whole life is imploding.
A hot mess express.
Because he just thought he could get away with it forever? I don't know. And then what all is he responsible for?
Exactly.
I mean, did he kill his wife and son?
And nanny? Or housekeeper, whatever. What was she?
I think, okay. What's the word? Opinion?
Yep.
Conjecture? Allegedly. I think Paul, because he clearly had some sort of rage problem based on what I have heard and read in stories and everything. And I think he may have pushed that housekeeper down the stairs, or something was weird.
Or an owl got her.
Or it's obviously, you never can rule out the owl. And then, they covered it up.
Yeah.
Just like they covered up whatever happened to Stephen
Avery.
No, Stephen, but Stephen, the guy who got basically, they said it was a hit and run, but you could tell it was like he was beaten with a baseball bat.
Yeah.
And then the boat crash. I mean, just so many things. There's so many awful things in that case. If you guys aren't familiar with the Murdaugh case, there's a lot.
Oh, you can just Google Murdaugh and everything.
Yeah, and I think there's like at least one podcast that is solely devoted to it because there is so much. But anyway, and they've also continued to deny him bail, as they should. I mean, he's going to go somewhere if he gets out.
Yep.
Or more people are going to die. One or the other. Okay. All right. So now that I've just, hey, let's tell you horrible stories. Here's the world. I have a story today that was sent in by one of our listeners, Nikki. Hey, Nikki.
Hey.
Nikki is real active in our Facebook group, so you might recognize her. And she had actually posted this in our Facebook group. She'd also sent us a message about it. Okay, so here's the message. This has it all. Murder, mystery, supernatural phenomena, and even underground tunnels and catacombs.
Ooh, I love those.
If you're ever in the area, I highly recommend a visit. Stay awesome, Nikki.
Oh.
I'll be honest. It was the underground tunnels and catacombs. So I was like,
yep, same.
Gonna have to look this up.
Yeah.
Wait till you hear about them too. Like,
okay,
they're awesome.
Okay.
And she's not wrong. This story does have St. Louis.
Okay.
The story does have a little bit of everything. It's also like fairly intense at times. I messaged Kara last night and I was just like, oh my God, I hate this story
so much.
Everyone's going to hate me for telling it to them. And Nikki, that's not because it's a bad story. It's a good, like, it's a really fascinating story, but man, it's sad.
The details.
Oh, it's sad. So trigger warning for suicide. Mm-hmm. It's okay if you can't listen to this.
Right. Skip ahead.
Or it's okay if you're at just a season of your life where you can't listen to it. You can come back later. Yeah. But it's because it's a lot. I can say more at the end, but I'm just saying it's a lot.
It's a lot.
So if you're even like, should I listen to that? Go ahead and don't. It's fine. Don't. We still love you, and we'll be back Tuesday with another episode.
Yeah.
All right. So if you're still going to stick around,
here we go.
All right. Did we say that this is the Witches, Magic, Murder, and Mystery podcast? I don't think so.
Well, we are. And I'm Kara.
I'm Megan, and we are 8.5 minutes in.
We're so good at this.
Okay. The Limp Mansion, Limp. It's Lemp.
Limp.
I'm positive it's like Limp.
Lamp.
But I'm from Kentucky.
It's Lamp.
And I'm going to say Limp. I got to try. Okay. The Lemp Mansion Restaurant Inn is known as one of the most haunted places in the United States. And like I said, it's located in St. Louis, Missouri.
How do we not know about this?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know how we don't know about a lot of this.
Yeah.
It's employees of the mansion have reported a piano that plays on its own, a candle on the mantle that will suddenly light up by itself, a drawer of a dresser that opens without anyone pulling it. Objects disappear from one place and reappear in another.
Okay.
Voices can be heard out of nowhere, and the clip-clop of horses coming down the street can be heard regularly.
Oh.
My mom used to volunteer at Camp Nelson, which is like a historic site here in Jessamine County, and she would talk about things that would be in one room, and then suddenly they would appear in another, and she would be the only person there.
Right.
Yeah, and I would do an episode on it, but that's literally like that would be the episode. Right. This is what my mom said happened, but anyway, that just made me remind me of it.
I bet we could post on that What's Happening page and see if anybody has Ghost
That
stories.
building has a very long history, and it was a war hospital at
Yeah.
one point. And my mom doesn't make up that stuff. Why would she?
Right. Or your dad.
No.
Those aliens.
Yeah, my dad definitely saw an alien, you guys.
He did.
Okay. A former waitress at the restaurant, Bonnie Strayhorn, tells this story. Early one morning, I was going through the house, making sure that everything was as it should be as the restaurant opened, when I noticed a dark-haired man seated at a table in what was originally the Lemp family dining room. He was facing away from me, so all I could see was the outline of his shoulders and head, and I was surprised to see someone in the restaurant so early, but, it's an inn, so it's possible that someone had stayed and come down. So I asked him if he wanted a cup of coffee. He did not answer, and when I looked away for a moment to flip the light on, I turned around, and he had vanished. She said it was impossible that anybody could have been there and then exited the room without her seeing because there was only like one way to go.
Okay.
She quit her job that day.
Oh,
she's like,
I cannot do this.
I'm out. So you can tour the mansion. There's like historical tours or a haunted tour. So you can kind of decide which track you want to go on. And you can also attend murder mystery dinner theater there or Halloween parties.
Okay, that's spooky.
The owners of the mansion say that the ghostly activity can make it hard to keep employees, but they do their best, inviting the public to stay the night and dine amongst the spirits.
Ooh.
I know, like, listen.
Have some spirits and dine with the spirits.
Well, and now we're doing their marketing. But we do this podcast. So, like, I like creepy things.
Yeah.
I just have a lot of mixed emotions about this.
Oh, no, well, you know me, I can't even do, like, Waverly, or what is it?
Yeah, Waverly.
Yeah.
And we can talk about more after I tell you guys the history. But there's part of me that is just bothered by the sensationalism.
Oh, yeah.
Of come dine amongst the spirits. Because once I tell you who these spirits are, you're going to be like, I just want to hug them.
Oh,
okay.
No.
All right.
They're tormented souls.
Yeah, I mean, ugh. So, Johan Adam Lemp, we're going into the history, okay?
Okay.
Johan Adam Lemp was born in Germany, but arrived in the United States in 1836, settling in St. Louis at 38 years old.
Okay.
He had a son who was 1 year old at the time that they came here. His name was William, okay? So, William was born in Germany, but he mostly grew up here.
Okay.
He opened a grocery store, A. Lemp & Co., where he sold all of the usual grocery store items,
Okay.
plus his own beer. Now, he made his beer using a recipe that was handed down by his father.
Oh.
And this was German beer, which at the time was not a thing.
Right.
So, or not a thing here.
Yeah.
So by 1840, like it was so popular that he formed the Western Brewery and focused exclusively on manufacturing and selling his beer.
Oh.
There was a large German population in the area. And then, like I said, plus it was such a new style of beer for people that Adam's beer was super popular. He was one of the very first brewers in the United States to produce German lager, which is a lot different from the typical English ales and porters being brewed in America at the time. His brewing business grew bigger and bigger, and he started using a cave in South St. Louis for storage because it was naturally cool. And, back then they didn't have the mechanical refrigerator.
Right.
So it was like the perfect
Temperature
for brewing beer.
Yeah.
And by the 1860s, there were 40 breweries in the St. Louis area who utilized those caves.
Oh, how cool.
But he's the one that started it. Like, he was the one that was smart enough to think, like, oh, we could just do that.
This would be perfect.
And if you've ever wondered why St. Louis is home, that's where Budweiser is and things like that. There's so many, like, big breweries there. It's because with those caves, it's a really perfect spot.
Yeah.
So for them to get started. So, like I said, there were 40 breweries in the St. Louis area using those caves, and the Western Brewery, which was Adams, was one of the most successful.
Right.
So William, his son that I mentioned, he grew up and he went to school at St. Louis University and went on to work at his father's brewery before he left and formed a partnership with a different brewer.
Oh.
He joined the Army in 1861 and he got married at the end of the year.
Okay.
Adam became a millionaire. So he made an incredible amount of money.
Yeah.
His family was very wealthy by the time that he passed away in 1862. At that point, William returned to Western Brewery and now assumed the position of owner and operator.
Okay.
2 years later, a larger Western brewery was built above the caves that had been used for the storage. So these are the kind of the underground tunnels and things.
Right.
So when William took over the company, he was really great at it. He had a really great mind for business. He knew what he was doing. He had all these plans. Western Brewery became the largest brewery in St. Louis, as well as the largest one-man owned brewery outside of New York.
Oh,
so
he did it.
He knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
In 1876, William bought a 33-room home. 33 rooms. What on earth would you do?
How
I don't know.
You do?
With the intent to use it as his family's residence, as well as like an auxiliary office for the brewery, because it was right by the brewery.
Okay.
He immediately began renovations on the home to turn it into a Victorian showplace. So, more evidence of how smart he was. He was one of the very first to begin bottling beer in the same facility where he brewed it for efficiency's sake. And then in 1878, he installed the first refrigeration machine in an American brewery. And that led to him coming up with the idea of refrigerated train cars or railway cars. And that helped Western's beer become the first beer in the United States to be available nationwide.
Oh,
like he's just
doing it.
Yeah. And how have we never heard of these people?
Right.
Soon, Lemp beer was sold around the world.
Huh.
So in 1890...
Delivery. Bye.
In 1890, William and his family moved into... Okay, one more time. In 1890, William and his family moved into the home he'd been renovating at 3322 Daymennel Place in St. Louis, which became known as the Lemp Mansion. The mansion was connected to the brewery by a series of underground tunnels and caverns called the Caves of St. Louis.
Ooh.
It was this same cave system that provided the perfect temperature for aging beer. The Lemps used the cave to walk to work each day. And later, when mechanical refrigeration became a thing, the caves were used for other purposes. Like they had a theater, like a...
How cool.
A natural auditorium, a theater, and a huge stone swimming pool that had hot water piped in.
Oh.
And then there was like, they said that you could only, for a time, the only way to access it was like this old spiral staircase that kind of went down into the ground, which just sounds beautiful and scary.
So creepy, yeah.
So in 1892, Western Brewery became William J. Lemp Brewing Company, and William's sons, Billy and Louie, ran the company along with William himself.
Oh.
Okay. So by the mid-1890s, Lemp Brewery had introduced the popular Falstaff beer, Falstaff. It's still brewed today by another company. Huh. So if you've heard of it,
here it is.
And also, I apologize if I mispronounced it.
Yep.
I don't. I mean, I always do that.
No.
I'm
We're
fine.
Megan's
It's
right
fine.
100% of the time about pronunciations.
Yeah, maybe they're saying it
they're
wrong.
wrong and they just need to be corrected.
At the same time that he was building the Lemp Empire, William also helped Pabst, like PBR, Anheuser,
Pabst.
and Busch get started. So he was, big deal. He was a big deal.
Yeah.
His whole family, big deal. William and his wife, Julia, had 9 children. One of them died in infancy, so this left 8. Here's the thing. Some articles I read said 6 children. Right. And I can't figure it out. I mean, you all can see the source list. There's a million articles, and some say 6 and some say 8. And it drives me crazy.
Where are the 2? Yeah.
Because some articles refer to this daughter and some don't. So I don't know.
Oh.
But I'm going with 8 because the article I trusted the most said 8.
Okay.
So the children were in order, from oldest to youngest: Anna, Billy, Louis, Charles, Frederick, Hilda, Edwin, and Elsa. It was the 4th son, Frederick, that William had hoped to groom to take over the company. Oh. He was William's favorite, and it was like no secret.
Oh.
But on December 12th, 1901, Frederick died of heart failure at the Lemp Mansion. He was 28 years old.
Oh my gosh.
He had never been in very good health.
Oh.
I never saw like what it is that he had, but they just said it was heart failure related to his disease.
Condition. Okay.
So, like I said, he was William's favorite, and so when Frederick died, it was just devastating, to the Lemp family. Little did they know, Frederick's death would be the first in what would turn out to be a long line of tragic deaths in the family. So this was followed by the death of William's best friend on January 1st of 1904, so a couple of years later. William had, the friend who died, his name was Frederick also, and it was Frederick Pabst, from Pabst, the beer. So, PBR, yeah. William had never been the same after his son's death. So then his best friend died, and it sent him into like a further decline. On February 13th, 1904, a little over a month after his friend died, a servant in the mansion heard a muffled pop from William's bedroom.
Oh.
She summoned his sons. His door was locked. So she summoned his sons, who broke down the bedroom door to find their father dead. He had shot himself. At the time of his death, the Lemp Brewery was the third largest brewery in the country.
My gosh.
A year later, his widow, Julia, was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh my gosh.
She battled the disease until 1906, when she died in the same bedroom where her husband had shot himself.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh.
At that point, Billy, William's son Billy, took over the Lemp Brewing Company, and he and his wife, Lillian, moved into the home.
The home where the parents passed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Billy didn't exactly have the business sense or drive of his father. From what I can tell, he and his wife mostly just enjoyed being wealthy.
Right.
Lillian was nicknamed Lavender Lady because she had a particular fondness for lavender-colored clothing and carriages. They said that she would even dye like the harnesses of her horses lavender.
What?
I mean, I don't know. Why?
I mean, I love a colored harness and lead rope.
Yeah, but
halter and lead rope on my horse, but
lavender all the time.
All the time. Wow.
So the things that were said about Billy basically were that he had been born wealthy and was used to getting whatever he wanted, never
Just
really
that
had
lifestyle.
boundaries. No one said no. Yeah.
Yeah.
So apparently he was a little bit of a player. The story, he referred to her openly as a trophy wife.
Oh my gosh.
And it got to the point that he would basically be like, he would tell her go shopping, like to get her to leave.
Oh.
And he would give her like $1,000 and be like, don't come home till you've spent it. And if you don't spend it all, I won't ever give you any more. Like, it's the weirdest.
What?
It's such a strange story that I was like, is this real? But I mean, it was on the internet, so it must be real.
So it must be true. Somebody said it.
So, I don't know. But like I said, he was a bit of a player. The story goes that he would run the brewery by day and then party hard at night.
Oh.
He held parties in the caves
Oh my god.
under the house, and he would bring in prostitutes to entertain his friends.
Okay.
And then there's a rumor that he fathered a secret child outside of his marriage. There's no official documentation that says that this child ever existed. But with all
his sexcapades.
Mm-hmm. And the rumor has persisted for like a century. So the rumor is that the boy was born with Down syndrome and secretly lived his entire life hidden away in the attic of the mansion. So I'll talk about this more in a minute, I guess. But like basically in order to hide the fact that
he had an affair.
His infidelity, as well as the idea that he would have a son born with any kind of disability.
Right.
Hid him away. So, and before you think, oh, this is just some wild made up thing,
Charles Lindbergh did it first.
According to St. Louis historian Joe Givens, he interviewed a former nanny and a chauffeur, two different people who had worked at the mansion, and both of them confirmed that the boy did exist and that he lived in the attic quarters above the servants' room.
Oh my gosh.
So now, these days, this boy is reportedly one of the ghosts of the mansion. People claim to have caught glimpses of him in the attic windows. Christopher Gordon of the Missouri History Museum thinks it's just a tale that popped up because of the attitudes toward the mentally disabled back in the early 1900s. Right. So back then, eugenics was all the rage, which is the idea that you need a perfect bloodline. Kara's getting a phone call from the...
This is Kara.
Police right now.
Yes, you were by the coffee shop earlier, right?
Kara's solving crimes, you guys. She just gets phone calls from the police, and they're like, "We need your help." And she's like, "Do." Not really. There was a crime committed.
There's a crime in my town, and I'm going to solve it.
They think that her security camera might have caught something. So And also we're clearly superheroes.
Yeah. I'm
just her sidekick.
Can we blur out his name? Can we bleep out his name in our video?
Oh, well, I'll cut the whole part.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay,
No.
well, I mean,
I'll cut the whole
yeah.
Okay.
As entertaining as that is.
Okay. I'm going to start back where I was.
As I joke on my own spin.
Okay. So today, this boy is reportedly one of the ghosts of the mansion. People claim to have caught glimpses of him in the attic windows. Christopher Gordon of the Missouri.
Oh, Mizzou.
It's like now I'm mispronouncing words I actually know. Missouri's History Museum thinks it's just, and I'm sorry, the museum thinks this. Christopher Gordon of the Missouri History Museum thinks it's just a tale that popped up because of the attitudes toward the mentally disabled at the time. So back in the early 1900s, the eugenics was all the rage. And eugenics was the idea of having this perfect genetic makeup, like these perfect bloodlines. Right. So families, especially the well-to-do ones, didn't want to be perceived as having impure bloodlines.
Yep.
So hiding away family members with physical or mental disabilities in institutions or keeping them out of view in basements or attics was common.
Wasn't Kennedy's sister?
It's horrible.
Yeah.
But
and Kennedy and Lindbergh were buddies.
It wasn't unusual.
No.
Yeah. So another thing about this story is it seems like the story of the child ghost came first, and then people came up with an explanation for it, which is where this idea of the secret child became part of the lore.
Gotcha. Okay.
So Andrew Lemp Paulson, who is one of the last living descendants of the Lemp family, says the boy never existed.
Huh.
People think the Lemps were just suicides and ghosts, he says, but we weren't. We're a real family, and these were good people. To claim that they would do something like that to a mentally handicapped child is extremely insulting.
Oh.
Which is true. I would feel the same way if it were my family.
Right.
However, at the time, it would be...
Yep.
It's not okay.
It's not excused, but it's explainable.
It'd be a lot different than someone doing it today. Today, everyone recognizes that is horrible and ridiculous.
Yeah.
But back then, he didn't, you know? And again, not saying it makes it okay, but I think trying to be like, they're good people, they never would have done that.
No, it's questionable.
Okay.
That's questionable.
So I still land on the idea that this kid probably never existed, but maybe that's just because I really hope
that someone wouldn't
that this didn't happen. Okay. But it's part of the lore. So I left it in.
We're going with it.
Billy and Lillian divorced in 1908, with Lillian getting full custody of their only child, William III. Lily had been the one to file for divorce, citing desertion, cruel treatment, and other indignities. So it was not an amicable separation.
Lovely.
Billy went on to build a country home overlooking the Merrimack River and called the home Allswell. By 1914, Allswell was his full-time residence.
Did it end well?
No, it did not.
Okay.
Remember, if the rumors are true, he is living full-time at Oswell, but that one son of his is still living
in the house
at the Lemp Mansion in the attic.
Okay.
Now, while Billy was dealing with the running of the business and a crumbling family life, his sister Elsa, the youngest of William Sr.'s children, was dealing with the personal issues, not the personal issues, but with personal issues of her own.
Okay.
She'd married in 1910 and then divorced in 1919. They had gone through a miscarriage. He was not faithful. There were lots of issues.
Okay.
So she divorced in 1919, citing damage to her mental and physical health.
Oh.
After the divorce was granted, Elsa actually ended up reconciling with her ex-husband, and they got remarried in March of 1920. So, 1919 divorce.
1920 marriage.
And later that month,
baby in a baby carriage.
Actually, 12 days after she remarried, Elsa shot herself in her bed at home. Not the Lemp Mansion, though. She was not. She was at her own separate home.
Jesus.
While her husband was in the next room. Upon learning what his sister had done, Billy Lemp said, "That's the Lemp family for you." Which just feels
empty.
Also, at this point, it's just William Sr., and her. It's just the two of them. It's, Okay. That's foreshadowing, but whatever.
Okay.
The Lemps called, after Elsa died, the Lemps called their attorney, a doctor, and the coroner, but not the police. Apparently, 2 hours passed before the police were on the scene, and there are some people who believe that Elsa was actually murdered and her death had been made to look like a suicide.
Oh.
A local film company in St. Louis actually made a documentary about this called Lemp's Last Right, W-R-I-G-H-T, and that's because her last name at the time that she died was W-R-I-G-H-T.
Okay.
Frankie Cambaletta, one of the filmmakers, said, "There's no blood at the scene of her death. When you look at this crime scene, everyone says, 'Where's the blood?' It's a through and through bullet. Usually, if you get hit by a bullet and it gets stuck inside you, then the bullet kind of acts like a stopper, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there might not be a lot of blood. But if it goes through you,
right,
you would think there'd be blood,
right?
And if there's not any, that's going to raise some questions." Cambaletta also says the police report was riddled with inconsistencies, from failure to interview key witnesses to misquotes and flat-out incorrect information. And then Elsa's body, this is so strange to me, it wasn't moved from the bedroom to be embalmed. They embalmed her right there.
What?
I don't know. And I'm like, is that some kind of weird practice that happened at the time? It also could have been people were obsessed with this family. I'll get into it later, but what? It could have been like a matter of they were worried that if they took her to there might be press, there might be pictures, or that someone from the funeral home might do something. You know what I mean? They might have just wanted to protect her privacy or the family's privacy. But anyway, they embalmed her right there in the room where she died, which people think is odd. So
same, yeah.
All of that is suspicious. And then there's her husband. I mean, obviously, his name was Thomas. Obviously, they had a rough relationship, divorcing and then remarrying.
Yep.
And according to Cambaletta, Thomas had been sleeping with half the staff. And then after the divorce, Elsa had written her will and Thomas wasn't in it, which he was not pleased about because they were like the wealthiest family in St. Louis.
Right.
So after she wrote that will, then they rekindled the romance and remarried. And then she's dead 12 days later.
Right.
And Thomas got everything at that point because they were married. So it is not a huge leap to wonder if she was murdered.
Right.
However, the official cause of death
is
suicide.
Okay.
So anyway, the documentary does a deep dive into this, lots of investigative stuff, and it came out in March of 2020. So you can probably find it somewhere. I tried to Google to see if it was streaming anywhere because I knew in the article I read, he talked about his goal was to get it on Netflix or something. That hasn't happened yet. I don't know how long that kind of thing takes.
Right.
So, but I really love to watch it.
Netflix, get on it.
Yeah. The Lemp Brewing Company shut down in the early 1920s after taking a big hit when Prohibition began. They tried making a non-alcoholic beer.
Didn't work.
I mean, of course it didn't work.
No.
Non-alcoholic beer is terrible. And also Billy just wasn't great at, he spent all this money renovating the mansion and let the equipment in the brewery kind of get in bad shape. He didn't keep up with the times and the other breweries did. So, a lot of things went wrong.
Yeah.
So the brewing company shut down without notice. Workers just showed up and there was a sign on the gate and they're like, "Oh,
we're not working here anymore."
Yeah.
Great.
So the trademark was sold to Lemp's friend, Papa Joe Griaziadic.
Yep.
I'm sure that was right. And the brewery complex was sold at auction. I think it was sold for something like $500,000 when it would have been worth $7 million before Prohibition.
Right.
So quite bad. And then, like we said, the Falstaff trademark. When I said the trademark, I meant the Falstaff trademark.
Okay.
So that's why that one beer is still brewed today.
Okay.
On December 19th, 1922, Billy Lemp dismissed his secretary from his office at the Lemp Mansion and followed in his father's footsteps, shooting himself in his office in the same home where his father had died. Billy was 55.
Jesus.
I'm not even done.
Oh my gosh.
In 1929, Charles, William Sr.'s third son, moved into the Lemp Mansion 7 years after Billy had died there. And this is the part where it finally hit me where I was like, why do they keep
moving into this?
Yeah, get the heck. Why do you want to go there? Even after
so much.
I get the family staying after Frederick died, the first death, because it was your son and you just want to kind of hang on to whatever you've got.
Yeah.
But I think once the father killed himself there, I'd be like, you know what? We have a lot of money. We'll get a different house. So
yeah, we can't do this anymore.
And then now there's another one. And by this point, Charles has lost his one brother to illness, his dad, his sister, and his brother to suicide.
Yeah.
So
what?
And he's just going to move right into the same house
And be okay.
So he had not gone into the family brewing business. He found a career in banking and finance instead. Charles never married, and he lived alone in the mansion with his dog and 2 servants. Charles had developed obsessive compulsive behaviors to manage his extreme fear of germs.
Oh.
He wore gloves all the time.
Oh.
And it's during this time, after Charles had moved back into the house, that people believe Billy's son, the boy with Down syndrome who lives in the attic, passed away and was buried in the family cemetery plot with a small marker that just read Limp. For what it's worth, Richard Lay, the vice president of Bellefontaine Cemetery, which is where their plot was, he studied the Limps for 30 years, and he says there are only 16 bodies in the Limp mausoleum, and each is accounted for. There's no mysterious grave marker.
Okay.
So if we believe him, and I don't know any reason not to,
I
just don't think this boy existed.
Yeah.
Okay. In 1941, Charles sent a letter to a local funeral home stating that in the event of his death, his remains should be taken by ambulance to the Missouri crematory. He did not want his body to be bathed, clothed, or changed, and he wanted his ashes to be put into a wicker box and buried on his farm. No funeral, no notice in the paper. 8 years later, to me it sounded like his death was imminent in 19... Why would he send that letter?
Right.
And 8 years later, in the room adjoining the room that Billy had shot himself in, Charles shot himself.
Oh my gosh.
After, I'm really sorry for this.
Nope.
He shot his dog.
No, why?
In the basement.
Why?
Charles left a dated note that said, "In case I am found dead, blame it on no one but me." He was the only one who left a suicide note of all of these. And it's assumed that he did this because he knew there had been all this speculation about the others.
Right.
And he just didn't want that with him. And he's just like, if I'm found dead, it's
I
me.
did it.
So the fact that in 1941 he sent that letter, I'm like, did he, in 1941, was he planning to do it then and he just kept putting it off? Or was it because, this is my family's legacy and I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go ahead and send this out. I just think it's so sad to think in 1941 he sat down and felt a need to even send that letter.
Out. Yeah.
So, at this point, Edwin Lemp was the last surviving son of William Sr. If you remember Louis, who had originally helped run the brewery with his father and Billy, Louis died in 1931, but of natural causes.
Right.
And then that just left Edwin. Edwin had worked at the brewery until 1913 before retiring to Cragwald, his own estate that he'd built overlooking the Merrimack River. So it's a different one than the one that Billy had built.
Okay.
Cragwald had an observation tower, 2 servants' houses, and a collection of birds, antelope, sheep, yak, buffalo. Did I say sheeps? Sheep, yaks, buffalo, and other animals.
I just got stuck on the antelope and yak.
I know. And I'm like, what? How big
of
an estate was this?
Yeah.
So Edwin was
just commingle?
As you can probably see, he was a big animal lover.
Yeah.
He became kind of a recluse after he moved out there, but he was really involved in charitable causes, mainly the St. Louis Zoo.
Oh.
Edwin died of natural causes at 90 years old.
Oh my gosh.
Leaving orders to destroy his art collection and family heirlooms.
Why?
Well, he was the end of the Lemp family line. And there are some who believe that the only reason he lived this long is because he got out of that house. And I also feel like that has something to do with why he wanted the family heirlooms to be destroyed.
Right.
It's like
he doesn't want that lingering.
Yeah, that family legacy was too sad.
Yeah.
And he didn't want it out there, or if he thought
they were haunted.
If it was cursed, and it could carry on through the physical objects. So he was just like, get rid of it. So his butler burned all of the paintings the Lemps had collected, which just kills me.
Yes.
As well as priceless family documents and artifacts. It all went up in smoke in a big bonfire. I can't imagine being Edwin at the end of his life, looking back and thinking of all the sadness. I mean, he had a huge family.
Yeah.
And just about all of them died
right
by suicide, which is the saddest thing. So if you're keeping track, that makes 2 natural deaths, 3 if you believe the child in the attic story.
And the mom. Well, cancer's not.
Well, didn't I say in the other? That's the second
one.
One
Died from the heart attack.
Well, I'm talking about inside the house.
Oh,
sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. So 2 natural deaths inside the house.
Okay, yeah.
3 if you believe about the son.
Yeah.
And then 3 suicides that took place inside the Limp Mansion. And then 1 suicide that took place outside the mansion, if you believe that Elsa took her own life.
Okay.
For the record, like I said, her death has officially been ruled a suicide. So alleged
our opinions. Yes.
Charles had been the last of the Lemp family to live in the mansion. After his death in 1949, it became a boarding house. And that's when the ghost stories started. Residents complained of ghostly knocks and phantom footsteps throughout the house. Witnesses said they saw a boy who asked for someone to play with him. Talk of the hauntings made it harder to find tenants to stay at the boarding house, and the building began to decline. And then during the 60s, there was an interstate constructed nearby, and that led to a lot of damage to the grounds and one of the carriage houses. In 1975, the Porter family bought the mansion and began renovations to turn it into the restaurant and inn that it is today. And the Pointer family still owns it.
Okay.
So workers who did those renovations told stories of apparitions, strange sounds, vanishing tools, and the feeling of being watched. Many of them left the job site and refused to ever come back. Yeah. So once the restaurant opened, employees continued to report apparitions as well as voices and sounds out of nowhere. They said glasses would be on the bar and they would just lift up and fly off.
Oh.
Yeah. And the doors would lock and unlock on their own. Lights would go off and on by themselves. A lot of the original architectural details have been replaced, but there are a few things left in the house that are original to the home. There are the decorative iron gates that go to the open air elevator that went down to the caves. Those can still be seen from the basement. In the office where Billy died by suicide, the original Italian marble mantle still stands. And the main bathroom still holds a glass enclosed shower that William Sr. had brought back to St. Louis from Italy.
Ooh.
And I just think about being in that house and touching those things and being like, this was here.
Yeah.
When this family was alive.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I mean, this whole family was wiped out.
Yeah.
So there are 3 areas of the mansion that are said to have the most paranormal activity. The stairway. So guests who stayed in the room where William Lemp Sr. died say that they've heard the sound of someone running up the stairs and pounding on the door, which if you remember,
the son's
that's what happened. Yeah. The attic, where people say they've encountered the ghost of a little boy. Ghost hunters have left toys in the middle of the room and drawn a circle around it to see if they've moved, and they'll come back the next day and they'll be moved. So they've done a lot of stuff there to investigate. And then the third place mentioned to have lots of paranormal activity is that entrance to the caves below the mansion. The staff calls it the gates of hell, which seems like a little much. But I couldn't find any specific stories. They're like, it's super haunted there. There were no
then
stories.
What? Tell us what.
But I'm like, it's the entrance to a huge hole in the ground. So it's, I mean, you don't really have to give me a story. I'm just curious what they are.
We don't want to go on it.
Overall, I read through a lot of accounts from people who have stayed there. They're like, oh, I stayed here in 2014 and here's what happened to me. And it's a lot of feelings of being watched, overall feelings of just being creeped out, and lots of orbs and photos, strange smells, stuff being moved around, So I don't live in St. Louis, clearly.
Yeah.
In case you guys didn't know.
We're in Kentucky.
And I don't know what the general talk of the Lemp family is around there these days. I know that I've never heard of them, but maybe that, I don't live there.
Yeah.
But they were this incredibly wealthy family. At one point, they were kind of royalty almost. People were obsessed with them. Whenever Billy and Lillian got divorced, it was all over the newspapers. People would dress up and go to the court to watch the trial. I mean,
what?
It was like some sort of reality show.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what we do now to celebrities. We get all obsessed with their personal lives.
It's very true. I mean, they make shows out of it now.
Right. And now there's this Lemp Mansion where all of the paranormal lore is tied to it. And I just wonder, is the focus more on how they died rather than how they lived?
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, do people know the Lemp name just because of that house? Or do they know all the other things, like the beer history? And, like, they were newsworthy on their own. They didn't have to die in some sort of sensational way to make history. So we already talked about how William, like, created the beer St. Louis.
Just the scene of it.
Yeah, and like
St. Louis.
Adam introducing the idea of using the caves, and then William becoming like the first one to be nationwide beer, and and they have a beer that's still brewed today. Remember how Edwin was all into the St. Louis Zoo? Yeah. This one article I read was like, St. Louis wouldn't have the zoo without the Lemp family.
Oh, wow.
It wouldn't have the beer garden. Wouldn't have the beer culture without the Lemp family.
Yeah.
And Elsa, the youngest child whose death was kind of suspect, she left, I shouldn't say child, she was an adult when she died, but the youngest child of William Sr., she left $100,000 for the children's ward of Barnes Jewish Hospital when she died. And the article was like, she built that hospital. So, I don't know. I just, knowing.
They left a legacy.
Yes.
Not knowing that they had made that kind of impact on their community.
Right. And just to think of how they all died.
Yeah.
Is so tragic.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And so the idea of come spend the night and dine with the spirits.
Yeah.
Don't call them the spirits. Like, they're the Lemp family.
Yeah. Yeah. And also.
And it's just so sad.
You're taking advantage of their tragedy.
Yeah. And I don't know. Then I started really thinking about that, and I was like,
we do that all the time. That's what we do for a living.
We tell these stories. But I hope that we are bringing. Yeah, I'm not like trying to make these stories. Right. I don't know. I'm not. We did that little thing where we were like, we're not trying to exploit these people. Yeah, we're not trying to exploit other people's.
We're trying to bring their stories to life to people that may not have heard of them before.
Yeah, and you and I do make jokes to each other, but not about the.
Well, and that's
the
how
victims.
We stay sane.
Right. But I just think, don't call them the spirits. Don't say, come dine with the spirits. And I'm going to wrap this up with, if you or someone you know exhibits warning signs of suicide, you can call the U.S. National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK or visit suicidepreventionlifeline.org. Mm-hmm. If you need that, reach out to someone.
Mental health is so important.
Don't be alone.
No.
Because
you're not.
There's no shame in it.
You may feel it, you're not.
And, it's been a rough couple of years for a whole lot of people, which is why I tried to really nail down that trigger warning at the beginning of this episode. Yeah. I almost thought I'm going to wait and not do this episode yet, but I just also, mainly I just wanted to be like, let's learn more about the Lemp family besides how they died. So
they had a lot of history.
Yeah. So if you live around St. Louis, go tell everybody you know about the other things that they did.
Yeah.
And even if you don't live around St. Louis, go tell everybody.
Of the caves and stuff.
Yeah. Now, that's not to like insult any of you who've gone there and been there. I would go visit too if I was there. I want to see those caves. They said that some years they'll have like Halloween parties down in the caves. And it would be like such a perfect place
down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't mind the idea of a haunted house. I don't mind the idea, whatever. Right. I just think maybe instead of come down with the spirits, let's talk about who the family is. Yeah. And maybe they do more of that than I know.
Learn the history and they may visit us while you're here.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. There's my lecture.
Soapbox over.
We love you
so much, guys.
Thank you all for listening every week.
Yep.
And if you have any story ideas for us, you can find all of our contact info in the show notes. Yep. We'd love for you to join the Facebook group.
Patreon.
Yep. All of that is in the show notes.
All the things.
And don't forget that there's new Patreon stuff starting February 1st, and we're really excited about it. Yeah. Okay. We love you
so much, guys.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.